Hello, hello. Happy Friday. So excited to be on it's afternoon for me. I think it's morning time for my amazing guest. And so, wherever you are in the world, we are glad that you are joining us and that you're spending time with us. You could be anywhere. So, we really, really appreciate it. This is really meant to be an opportunity for us to connect, to share, and learn. So, just as a quick reminder, please make sure you raise your hand if you want to ask a question or share your perspective. And we encourage you to do so. All right. So today's topic is all about podcasting and thought leadership. And then, of course, I added that little extra question of, are podcasts declining? And so we look forward to also hearing your perspective if podcasts are declining. Before I introduce our guests, I quickly wanted to just introduce myself. If this is the first time you've joined one of my audio events, I try and host these every single Friday around the same time. And what I do is I love to bring in the amazing people in my community, the amazing people in my network, and also the amazing people that support me in the work that I do. So today I've brought on someone who supports me in the work that I do. And so as a quick introduction to myself, I'm a certified executive and leadership coach, learning and development facilitator, speaker, and host of the Open Door Conversations podcast that is actually managed by the amazing human that is joining me today. So Valery, can you take a second to just introduce yourself and let people know a bit more about you?
Thank you so much for having me today, and welcome everyone. This is my first LinkedIn audio event, and I am super excited. But my name is Valery, and I am Akua's podcast manager. And overall, I support coaches with the launch of their podcast and also the management of their show. And a fun fact is that I am doing it from everywhere in the world. So right now I am in Mexico, and I will going back to the Netherlands because I am from the Netherlands in April, and then I'm going to Africa after. So super excited.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Valery. So for those of you who are listening to this and you also maybe are interested in learning a little bit more about that nomad lifestyle, what that could look like for you, you're more than welcome to ask those questions to Valery as well, because that's something that she knows very well. So we're going to kick it off with sort of, I guess it's not necessarily a question, it's more of a statement. And once again, those of you who are listening in the audience, you're also welcome to join us on stage to share your perspective of the questions and of the statements I'm going to be asking Valery up here. We want to hear from you. Remember, this is really meant to be a conversation. But Valery, we want to start off with, having an understanding of maybe what's happening in the podcasting space right now. Are podcasts declining? Are people still excited to listen? Are people still excited to put them together and produce them?
Great, question basically. What we will see, what we are seeing happening in the industry is that podcasting in general is growing, and in the past 3 years, it's growing, I think, with 29-30%, and it will grow even more. And yeah, people are still excited. What I see happening right now, and basically, my main platform is Instagram, is that a lot of people do not want to rely on Instagram only because all the algorithm updates, everything what's happening. So a lot of people are moving over or to email or even to podcasts to launch up their own podcast because that's a medium what they own. So it will definitely keep on growing in the upcoming years.
Thank you so much for that, Valery. Anyone else from the audience want to share their perspective on where podcasts are going, podcast trends, tips? Once again, feel free to raise your hand. Oh, I see someone's raised their hand, so I will click and allow you to speak. Hopefully you've joined us on here. Great. Can you please pronounce your name for us? Hi.
Yes, you can call me Push for short.
Oh, Push. Welcome. Please, would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so from a very challenging name to a very easy name, that's a good start. Okay, great. So I'll be very quick. So I think podcast has to be a part of your resume because nowadays we are going all digital, right? So I think everybody, whether it's an introvert or an extrovert, podcast is is the main thing everybody should get their hands on, because when you speak, you release stress, unconditionally, and that is biggest answer to a lot of challenging moments. So I feel that podcast should be one of the main things on your agenda, because at the end of the day, now, since I said everything is going digitalized, you need to have that digital presence, maybe a website, whatever you're doing, whether you are technical background, whether you're doing construction work or whatever, the digital presence will help you to tackle a lot of problems. So on the podcast subject, I think it is mandatory to have it in your resume. This is my insights and contribution. Over to you guys.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm curious, Push, do you have your own podcast?
Yes. I was a
Yeah.
little bit late to start with, because I'll be very quick. What directed me to have this kind of mindset is rejection. Okay, after COVID, we all went through
Okay.
the brunch, right? So I was laid off as well. So when the markets opened, I applied again to get into the market, but because of my age, because of my overqualification, and because of a career gap, I was rejected left, right, center, bottom. So now what I know about myself, Push is not going to sit quietly, right? So though I started late, but I'm getting my hands on it. I'm a failure, but I'm a very, very inspirational failure, you can say. So I'm getting my hands on podcasting. I'm a motivational speaker. Just started my company 3 months ago, and I'm getting responses. Sometimes I get nervous. I have to host a women's empowerment session on the 27th of this month, and my audience is 40 women. And I'm nervous and scared, but hey, bring it on, no worries. As long as my intentions are pure and my observations are bang on target, I'm going to nail it. Over to you.
Exciting. Yes, definitely. And
Yeah.
it really sounds like podcasts have worked really well for you. You said several things there that I think, really resonated with me, especially as to why I think podcasting works for me, right? So you mentioned, whether you're an introvert or extrovert, though I speak for a living, I think it's really nice to sort of have that library of work that anyone can kind of get access to at any point in time. And that could, right, potentially lead to business or opportunities. So thank you so much for sharing your experience, Push. And it's really exciting to hear about the opportunities that are coming your way. Really glad to hear that. Once again, would love to open it up to the audience if anyone else wants to share their perspective on podcast trends. And maybe I'll even ask a question. For those of you that are in the audience, can you just, use an emoji? Let us know what the reaction. Do you have a podcast? And if you have a podcast, just use a reaction. Would love to know how many of you here. Leilani, glad to see you. So Leilani has one. Okay. Phil, yes, thank you so much for joining us, Phil. Okay, great. All right. And we also see Leilani also wanting us to join on the stage. All right. So let's just speak. Welcome.
Hi, Akua. Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me up here. How's everybody doing?
Doing well. Thank you.
Good. Sorry for the background noise. I almost didn't pop up here because I'm getting my car detailed right now, but
Well,
I'm
thank
really
you
enjoying
so
the
much.
conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started my podcast I'd say about a month and a half ago or so. And I'm very much enjoying it. And I went with a strategist. I didn't do it on my own. And she shared with me, her name's Angie Jordan, and she shared with me how to really look at monetization from a perspective of it's my commercials, right? That I'm playing. Like a lot of people look at podcasting and the ads that they place on their podcast are really for they're building their podcast first and then they're looking to sell spots or get positioned. And so for me, I have people guided towards my programs. Now, I can't speak to the results of it for myself because it's a newer podcast. At the same time, it makes a lot of sense to to do that because of the fact that people come and they binge your podcast, they binge listen quite often. And so they really get to know you. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that for a second, because that's really exciting to understand. And I'm watching that in my results, that people are binge listening. They're going there and not just listening to one episode. It's episode after episode after episode when they have time for that at times. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Even though you could be distracted a little bit, glad to have you on stage and glad to hear those points. Valery, would you be open to elaborating maybe even on monetization and your thoughts on that and how you support your clients with thinking about how to do that?
Yes, thank you so much. And so happy for Push and Lailani, if I hope I pronounced your name correctly. That you started your podcast. That's super excited. Maybe you can share the name as well so that we can all listen to your show. And if it comes to monetization, like what Push said, it's of course a part that you want to include to your business to basically I don't want to say funnel, but to like connect or basically funnel your listeners into your programs. And how you can do that is of course by putting an ad in your episode as well, but also really talk about, okay, this is your program for basically you have a program, and of course you sell a solution, and then basically remove the blinders or make your audience aware of the fact, hey, this is what you are struggling with, or this is where you're going through, and this is how I can help, or this is what you need to do, and then this is where I can help you with in my program. And then in this case, you are like basically making them aware of the facts from, hey, this is, I am the solution for your program. And fun fact, Aku and I know each other because I launched we know each other through a course or a program that we both were in. And she was my client first, and she did it so well because I joined her program. She was my client, of course, but I think it was 6 or 7 episodes. And then I'm like, okay, you speak, or you are the solution for the problem that I had on that moment, right? On that moment. So I decided to join her program basically because she was speaking to every pain point that I had at that time.
I love that. I think that's such a great story, right? So the podcast manager joins the program because the podcasts that she's listening to and editing are so good and do such a good job, right, of dispelling those myths, of helping you like work through those stories and helping you see that individual's the solution. Yes. All right.
Yes. I love that, Valery. It's so important what you do. I love that you went through Valery Akua, and that's such a great story. And thanks for letting me share my podcast. It's Get Seen. So that's the name of the podcast, Get Seen. And
okay.
I talk about marketing, visibility, sales, just really how to get yourself out there through social media and different platforms and generate profits in your business. So that's my podcast, and I appreciate you letting me share that.
Yes, everyone, please make sure you search for Lailani's podcast. Push, do you also want to share the name of your podcast so people can find it as well?
Yes. So I own a company called the Loopify Learning. So what I've done is I've merged my podcast sessions with my website. So I'll be very quick. So let's say we give respect to the pocket of everybody, right? Some of us are not in the position to invest that much amount of money, and in the market you have a lot of variety. So what I did is I contacted a lot of interns. I contacted a lot of students who are in the field, technical field, programming, coding, a lot of things. So I had a budget. Okay, so the most important thing is the idea of podcast, you leave it because, oh my God, so much investment is needed. So don't let it stop you. There is always a solution to every situation or concern. Have that heart to find out, because these interns, these students, and a lot of new beginners helped me so much that I see it will evolve gradually. Your website, your podcast session, your quality of delivery will eventually increase, but you have to go through that phase and you will find answers. So this is what I wanted to say. And my company is loopifylearning.com. So whenever you get a chance, you're most welcome to visit. Over to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that and for also encouraging people to just get started and recognizing that a part of it they will learn as they go and it will get better. Thank you. Valerie, before I ask you our next question, I do see that we have Kirsten that joined us. Did you have a question or something that you wanted to add?
Hey, yes. So I wanted to ask a question, and I'm not sure. I jumped in a little bit late, so
Please
apologies
go
if it's
ahead.
repetitive.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see opportunities for me to do a podcast for my consumer audience that wants to get into B2B contracting, as that's one arm that I serve. But I wanted to get your particular perspective on doing a podcast for the corporate audience. So your B2B clients that you're looking to attract. Do you see value in developing a podcast and building relationships with those folks as well?
Is that question for me or for Akua?
No, Valerie, you can go ahead. Yeah. Anyone can answer, of course. Yeah. Go ahead, Valerie.
Yeah, I think for sure. It's like, I think, Akua, where we spoke about last week,
Mhm.
that client found you and then you have that speaking opportunity. I think that's a great example.
Agreed. Yeah. So from my perspective, most of my clients are B2B. They also listen to my podcast. How they come across it sometimes, I might share something, somebody else might share it with them, but I definitely think it's a great way to share what you do. And in my case, because my role is to be a facilitator, it's also a really great way of showing them how I speak, the passion I have for specific topics, and also what topics I can speak about as well. So from my perspective, I think it's a really great medium. I think it's a really great medium. And another thing that comes up when I think people are asking about podcasts, and Valerie, feel free to share your professional perspective. This is my unprofessional perspective, is that you don't have to do it forever. So one thing that
True.
the woman who, the program that we met in, she, I think, did about 60 episodes, and I think she stopped, right?
I think it were 60 episodes, something around that
Mhm.
year mark. Yes, and she stopped, and I'm still on our email list, and I see every time or
Mhm.
every week she is or like sending an email out what is guiding through her podcast, because she created strategic episodes what are all funneled into her program, so she can reshare the podcast to her email and still use it. So yeah, it's definitely something that you can that you don't need to do forever. It's just putting it out there and then start resharing it. Yes.
Yeah, because I
I
think for
like that.
some, oh, go ahead, Valerie. Sorry.
That was me. I was
Oh,
saying
go
I
ahead.
like that idea, and I didn't think of, kind of doing it in a maybe like on a seasonal basis, like you just have one season or
Mhm.
pop up. I don't know. I was kind of thinking
Mm-hmm.
of what that will really be classified as, but I didn't think of doing it that way. But that actually puts less pressure on it. So I
Exactly.
appreciate you
Yeah.
sharing.
I can't
True.
read your mind, but I figured it could have been partially like, do I have to continue doing it? Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And what you're seeing happening right now, because I don't have my own podcast, basically because I am doing this digital nomad lifestyle, and I feel that I will be really struggling to keep on point, even if I'm doing, or keep consistent, even if I'm doing seasons. But what I will do for my program is that we are launching 10 episodes, and those 10 episodes will be basically the funnel into
Mhm.
my program. So that, yeah, same as like a webinar. So that's also how you can approach a podcast instead of a webinar.
Okay. I love
Yes.
that. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
You're
asking
welcome.
that question. Great, great
Absolutely.
question. Yeah, because we weren't even going to go in that direction in this conversation, but I think that's probably really helpful for so many people to hear. So thank you so much for that. Phil, I see you've joined us up here. Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, it was so nice to be here, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm really grateful for the forum. Um, we are in our fourth season, episode 3,
Yes.
season 4. We're currently being downloaded in 99 countries around the globe. And I heard a few people plug their podcast, and I never
Please.
waste. Thank you. I never
Go
waste
for
an
it.
opportunity to try to plug my podcast. It's entitled Light 'em Up, and you can type that in on your keyboard by typing LIGHT apostrophe EMUP, Light 'em Up. And we're on every major platform where you get your podcast today. And I saw this opportunity, and I just wanted to share a little information that you can cross promote everything that your business does. Having a podcast is an excellent, excellent, excellent opportunity to cross promote your services and the things that you do, the things that you're interested in, and the people that you want to help. So I would encourage everyone, if you have the opportunity, do it. Take advantage of this opportunity where you podcast, where you provide information that's helpful. We like to say that we enlighten, educate, and empower
Yes.
others with the truth. And we also say, like it or not, the truth disturbs, the truth divides, but ultimately the truth delivers. So thank you for this opportunity to come on and share a little bit of information. If anyone has a chance to check out our podcast, I'm sure you'll be educated, and it'll be time well spent.
Love that, Phil. And before you leave us, as you're still on stage, I'm curious, how did you come up with the title? Because I know for me, one of the hardest things to do was to come up with the title, the name of my podcast.
That is a crucial aspect to podcasting. Your artwork that you have is very crucial. I think it's important to keep the number of words on your artwork limited to 10 words maximum or less. But how I came up, to answer your question, how I came up with the title, my podcast is focused on the criminal justice system, crime scene investigation, and leadership. We're not true crime. We're considered the truth in the criminal justice system. So it focuses a lot about police practices in the U.S., which everyone can tell is largely in the news daily. So when a law enforcement officer decides to pull someone over, they hit their emergency lights, and that's referred to as lighting them up. And that's
Oh.
the name of the
Mm.
they hit the siren, and the siren goes. You hear the full siren, blare. So yeah, I just decided to take one aspect of law enforcement and apply it to the title of the podcast. And you have to have catchy artwork. You have to catch someone's eye. You have about 5 seconds in which to catch someone's eye. Otherwise, they'll continue to scroll. So you have to be very detailed. You have to be very focused, and you have to lure people in to listen to what you have to say. You have to always create content that is informative and helpful, not necessarily to us, to me, but it has to be helpful to our listeners.
Love that, Phil. I mean, thank you so much. I mean, just by listening to you talk about it, I was like, the title was such a great selection. And I love how
I
you sort
love
of bring
it.
in,
Yeah.
all those elements. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining and sharing.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So Valery, just maybe off of what Phil said, any additional insight or advice you'd like to share when you are thinking about, creating the podcast, coming up with the name and maybe some of those other elements?
No, I I have what to say. I love what Phil said, that it's like your name is really important, and also your cover art, because like Phil said, it's the first thing that new followers will see or new listeners will see. And so what you want to do if it comes to coming up with your name, of course, depending on if you want to use it as part of your business or it's just like a hobby, I recommend always using it as a part of your business, but keep it short and sweet as well. And make sure that, like same as with the name of Phil's podcast, that it basically communicate a little bit where the podcast is about in general. For you, is like open door conversations. It makes so much sense. Everyone not knows exactly where the topic is about, but it's like an open door. We can talk about it. So that's an important part. And if it comes to your cover art as well, don't use too many words. Don't use a microphone headset, because podcasting is the medium, it's not the subject. And we want to visually communicate, or your podcast cover art communicates visually where the podcast is about.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. Thank you for all those tips, Valerie. And I think this is actually a really great segue to the next question. Leilani actually touched upon this before a little bit, which she was talking about how she just recently launched her podcast and how she got some help with it. I also got a lot of support to start my podcast. I honestly would not have started it if Valerie wasn't like, you should start a podcast. You'd be good at it. I was like, no.
Yeah.
She's like, you should do it. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, how to know if starting a podcast makes sense and how to start a podcast. Like, where should people really begin?
Great question. And I think what Push said, if it comes to starting a podcast, I think right now, and I think Phil mentioned it as well, like right now, it's good to have, of course, we are on LinkedIn right now, but it's even good to start a podcast if you are building your business only on Instagram, because as we know, we don't own it and there is so much going on. And what you're seeing happening, I already touched on it, that you can also strategic create like 10 episodes, 15 episodes, or even do one season for your podcast and use that as like basically your podcast to attract new listeners and get in front of a new audience. And if it comes to starting a podcast, first, of course, it's the goal. What is the goal that you have with your podcast? Like I said, if you want to use it for your business, or do you want to attract new leads? Do you want to just get in front of more people? I think, or setting a goal for your podcast is the first thing that you need to think about. And based on that, you can like do some brainstorming about which type of topics you want to cover to make it, I don't want to say cohesive, but to make sure that it is
Consistent.
consistent, but also that it makes sense, that you're not talking one week about this and the other thing about this, that people know, okay, if I'm listening to your episodes or to your podcast, this is what I get out of it, and it's not going all over the place, basically. Basically creating a structure, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
No.
And then
Go ahead. Yeah.
do you have a question?
No.
Yeah, and then of course, like the topics, creating the name, the cover art, basically the building up the foundation, setting up your workflow, and then it's just time to record. And then you want to make sure that you recording that you have a microphone and recording in the right I don't want to say recording space, but in the right room. Basically check how your recording sounds before you really push record and continue with recording your episodes.
Yes. Yes. And it doesn't have to be anything too complicated, right? So I just have a mic in a room. I don't go to a studio. Some people do, but I don't.
Yeah, like what people do, like I have clients who are going to a recording studio basically because that's just a mindset. Okay, I'm renting a room, I'm paying for it, and that pushes them to like record those 4 episodes for the entire month.
Yes.
So that's a little bit why, and of course the audio quality, but also that they're like, okay, I'm recording it, this is what I'm doing today, and then I don't need to think about it, I just hand it off, and that's it.
Yes. And I think you also speak to something else that probably helps when you are doing a podcast as well. Something I haven't been doing recently, but you touched on batching that content as well. So recognizing that you don't have to do it, constantly. You can pick a week and do all your podcasts, maybe even for the year, depending on the number that you want to release. So once again, it doesn't have to be something that you do constantly or routinely. It could be something that you do and you sort of batch at one point in time.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
What I would recommend doing.
Yes, and which I'm failing to do right now. But I will. So those of you listening that are still here, thank you so much still for being here. If you have any questions for Valery or even Push, please feel free to join us on stage. If there's anything also you want to contribute, you're welcome to join us on stage as well. I'm going to go. I think I have about 2 more questions. And so if anyone else has any questions, please join us on stage to share them. But Valery, I'd love for you to get, I'd love to get your perspective on why podcasts fail and what failure can even look like for a podcast, right? Because one of the first things that you shared about, how to start a podcast is setting a goal. So yeah, why do podcasts fail?
What's the complete definition from failing if you are looking at your podcast? But I think a lot of people underestimate if how much work is involved.
Mm-hmm.
It's just more than, okay, I'm only recording, and then they fail because they just quit and they don't they don't see the results. That's what I think. But I think setting a goal for your podcast and will really help. What was your question? Sorry.
No, you've answered it. I think that right there is one one answer. But yeah, why do podcasts fail?
Yeah, I think that they are not consistent, and that people underestimate how, like I said, how much work it is, and then they just stop and don't see the results right away. And I think Leilani touched on it. It can take a while for you to see results, but it's just being consistent. Like if you are starting, it's not that, or you need to be Oprah Winfrey or something, that you get results immediately, but it takes a while to like catch up and make people familiar with that you have a podcast and funnel them into your service or your offer.
May
So
I
it's
add
just
something
being
very
consistent
quickly?
and going. Yes, of course.
Sorry, Valerie, you complete, then I'll wait for my turn.
No, go for it. I was finished. Thanks,
Okay,
Push.
so no worries, no worries. So I think the two major reasons why people fail is, one is the lack of knowledge. Okay,
Okay.
the fact that it is so hyped that, oh my God, if I look at a podcast, it looks glamorous. Let's face it, So that is one of the main reason that, don't worry about it. The best thing is to start. First, you need to pass the first grade, then the second grade, then you will 10th grade. You cannot jump directly to the 10th grade. So the important thing is to start. And there is a lot of knowledge. Social media, is a big blessing if you use it in a right way, because fire can cook and it can burn. It's how you use it, the resources. And also, you don't have to go full throttle. Start your LinkedIn audio, for example, or start adding voice to a video or something. So the main thing is start. Knowledge will help you, and don't be mesmerized with all the glamour what is attached. It will come slowly, as you all said it. So I think these are the two things which one should keep in mind before they start anything.
Great points. Really great points there. I mean, from my perspective, I know I definitely would have, and once again, fail is relative. And I think Valerie, you sort of were speaking to that, right? Because it's going to depend on what goals you set for yourself. But thinking about my experience, I definitely wouldn't be here if I didn't have external support that I invested in, right? So the fact that I have, Valerie being like, yo, and sometimes she's like, yo, that definitely helps. Taking the pressure off also to edit it, I think, is also a very big thing. And some of my other friends that podcast that do their own editing, it can become very tedious and very tiresome if you do your own editing, if you're the one also creating the graphics, right? If you're the one also uploading it to all the different platforms as well. And so that's one of the things I think that's really nice about having that, having someone to support you with that, right? You can do it all your own. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's all stuff you can do. You can Google most of it, but it's really nice to have someone support you with that, so you can focus on what you can uniquely contribute, which is, of course, your voice, your perspective, and your ideas. So yeah, I think for me, having external support helps keep me, consistent, or as consistent with trying to show up, trying to record things, not always batching them, but at least trying to record them. And then I think the other one that comes to mind, especially with the goals, and this is something I've shared with other people as well, is recognizing that all of us have I think all podcasters have very different ideas of what success looks like. And for me, what I
Yeah.
realized was, and this is something, Valerie, we've had conversations about, like in terms of my podcast, it pays for itself as long as I get one-on-one client every quarter that comes to me and is like, hey, I love that podcast episode you did. And that's the reason why I reached out and applied to work with you. Right. So I also don't use any external like advertisement in my podcast, and it just pays for itself. And I think it really does help to support with, getting people to have a better understanding of how I show up and also the value I provide.
Yeah, and also like you're such a great speaker, and that's we talked about in the beginning when you are started. Like you were, I don't want to say nervous, but
Very
should I do
nervous.
it? And I'm like, yeah, you are such a great speaker, and it's just getting, I don't want to say used, but um I don't want to say step out your comfort zone, but just
That's
be
what it is.
confident with your
Yeah.
like just you. I told you from the beginning, you are such a great speaker and you have so much to share. Just go for it, and then we can see and improve along the way. And I'm so glad you did. So
Yes.
that's also something that I think if you work with someone that really like pushes you from, hey, we have like our conversations, and then I'm like, okay, just go for it, just do this and see. Because if you don't start, it's all about tracking your analytics as well. Like
Mhm.
we don't know, of course, we can have a little bit of an idea about, okay, this type of episodes are working, this type of episodes are liked by your listeners, but it's all about also tracking your analytics to see what's going on, and then make a plan from that point.
Yes. So not only do I have someone who helps me to produce my episodes, I also have a cheerleader. She's great at it.
Yeah.
She's also a really great marketing strategist as well. She's also helped me think about, and this is something I know I've always struggled with in my business as someone who is primarily a coach and primarily identifies as a coach, making sure I have the right positioning and messaging when it comes to the title, when it comes to even thinking about topics. And she also does the analytics as well. So yeah, it's very helpful. It's been incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's so
before, go ahead.
No, I wanted to say something about now we are tracking more in depth the analytics, and it's so fun to see how the podcast or each episode is growing every week or getting more downloads every week. So that's super fun.
Yes. And so before I share my last question, I once again just want to open it up to all the amazing humans that are in the audience. Does anyone else have any other questions, have any other insight or knowledge they want to share? Feel free to raise your hand and I will bring you on the stage. All right. In the meantime, I will ask my last question. But once again, if there was, oh, yes. Excited to have you here. All right. And can you please let me know how to pronounce your name?
Hi, Janae.
Janae, excited to have you here, Janae. And Janae is also a podcaster. So very, very excited to have her here.
Thank you so much for the invitation and letting me know about the event. I am still very much I feel very much in the startup phase of my podcast journey and also in my business journey. So I view it as right now, I'm doing stuff. It took me so long to even get to action. It's like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. I wasn't doing anything. And now I'm doing things. No connection, no clear connection to like an offer or how some listen to the podcast, and like, I don't have those kinds of calls to action. I'm curious to hear like, at what point you think that's necessary, or like is it a timing thing, is it an internal sense thing? I'm happy to be doing. At some point I know that I will want to like, I will want people to like know me from it and want to do business with me, but how you get from where I am to that, oh, clients are actually coming out of this?
Great question. And Jana, I'm so
Janae.
confused.
Janae.
Janae, sorry. what is your business right now? Because now you have just episode standing on its own, or basically tell us a little bit more about what you are doing, and where your podcast is about right now. I want to change the world is the name, but
Yeah, so well, the podcast is about me as someone who, well, wants to change the world and used to have some ideas around what that meant. Um,
mm-hmm.
Zooming out and saying, actually, let's poke at this idea. And I pick a topic per season. So season one was
Okay.
just me sort of introducing, who I am. Season two, which has been about thought work and me getting into coaching. And I talk about being a coach. I don't explicitly make a pitch to other people, but I talk about how it's transformed me as someone who's showing up in this work of wanting to change the world. Um, but I still haven't connected it to an offer.
It's not connected to an offer.
No, and the truth is, I don't have offers fully fleshed out right now. Like people,
Mm-hmm.
like I'll offer workshops sometimes for people who know me from doing that. So I've had people reach out to me because also like I am a nonprofit professional. People know my work through that. So they have like
Mm-hmm.
approached me about facilitation gigs, but maybe because my my business offer is murky, it's murky like the podcast as well. I don't know. I'm doing stuff. How do we turn it into something strategic is my question.
Okay. I think the main thing, if it comes to like, or where you want to be clear of before you can make it strategic, is of course you offer, because without an offer there's nothing to promote in your podcast. So I think having a clear understanding, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what, this is for who it's for, this is the solution that I have, or this is what I will help them with. I think that's the beginning part of having those strategic episodes. And then from that point it's like time to look at, okay, or not look at, create episodes around um, the things that you are basically removing the blinders from your audience, and like really talk them through, this is where you are struggling with, this is how you can change it, and if you want to have extra support, this is how I can support you with this. But first, you need to have, of course, a clear understanding from, okay, this is my offer and this is what I'm doing. And I think I'm looking at your podcast right now. I
Yes,
think
Valerie.
I want to,
I love it.
yeah, no, I see it. I want to change the world, chasing my dreams, learning how to feel. It starts in your head. I think what you are doing right now makes so much sense. I'm, of course, not listening because I'm with you guys, but um, looking at your episode or looking at your podcast name makes sense in what you are putting out there, what I'm seeing from the titles.
Okay.
That
And
people,
then
like,
thank you
people
for
are now getting familiar with what you are doing, where you're standing for, and if you have created your like program or like your offer, you can basically like what I just shared with you.
okay. Do you mind if I ask one more question?
Please go ahead.
No.
So thank you. As you were talking, I I thought about this offer question of I'm actually like doing my way into it, and as it's almost a discovery process as I do these episodes. But I did want to ask about, do you see this as an opportunity for like branding? Like if I'm not coming out saying this is my offer, come work with me. The approach that I'm taking right now, doing stuff and stuff out there, do you think that it could still be effective in terms of still just like building myself as a brand?
Yeah, of course, because you are really showing where you're standing for. So it definitely can help you build your like personal brand and show people this is what I'm doing and this is not doing, but this is where I'm standing for sure. And then slowly you can start. I wouldn't stop, definitely not. I would say just keep on going and you will find your way into um doing it. I don't want to say doing it more strategic way, but making it into an offer. Does it make
Thank you.
sense?
It does, and it's actually for me just affirming to hear like an
Yes.
expert, like, oh yeah, this these random thoughts in your head, they resonate. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And it's just putting yourself out there. And I think Akua just shared it as well, that it's just putting yourself out there and show like your listeners where you are standing for. And yeah, it's already a great start for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I
Yes.
followed your podcast.
Yes, yes, yes. Great, great question. Once again, want to ask all the amazing humans that are still listening any other questions or anything they would add? All right. I think the only thing I'd want to add on my end is that in terms of the offers, you don't have to have it like, you don't need a website with it. You don't need even a sales page with it. The offer can just be as clear as, what Valerie was sharing, and maybe you just have it written down somewhere, right? So don't overcomplicate it. It might be a great opportunity also to just experiment and sort of see what comes from sharing it. So that's just one thing I want to share, because I know when I first started, I thought that, you know, every offer had to be had to stay forever. I couldn't evolve it. I couldn't shift it. And one
No.
of the things you'll learn about people, especially in this space, is that their offers evolve, right? Where they started is so different from where they are, even maybe within 3 months. Just try something and see where it goes.
Thank
Yes,
you
I
for
love
that.
it.
All right. So I'm just going to ask my last question. Valerie, as someone who edits so many podcasts, what are some of your favorite?
I am such a fan, and I don't mention my names for my clients, but I'm not editing his podcast. I'm a huge fan of the podcast from Aubrey Marcus because he has amazing guests. The podcasts are really long. I like long podcasts, not to edit, but to listen to. And yeah, I don't know. It's just his guests are amazing. So that is definitely my favorite um, podcast that I listen to when I'm not working.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Valerie, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for joining us this Friday. Once again, a last round. Anyone else have any questions, any thoughts, anything else they want to share before I close up here? Just raise your hand. All right. Once again, yeah, Valerie, just thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your perspective, for doing a live, I would say, like consulting sort of session, even. Didn't know the conversation was going there. So thank you so much for being open to doing that. Can you please let everyone know where they can find you if they're interested in learning a little bit more about what you do? And I just also want to welcome everybody to connect with Valerie. Just click on her face, and then the options to follow or to go to her profile will pop up. So please make sure you follow Valerie. But Valerie, please let people know how they can find out more.
Thank you. It was so fun. I was a little bit nervous to be honest, but it's it's super fun, and I'm thinking of doing LinkedIn events as well. Like now, I'm so
Yes.
excited. But I my main platform is Instagram, like I said before. So that is where I'm hanging out. The name is my Instagram handle is the podcast planners, and I also have a website www.thepodcastplanners.com. And I don't have my own podcast yet. It's still in the making, but that is basically for my signature service. So if you want to become a podcast manager, I would say definitely reach out. And yes, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Valery, once again for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for spending a bit of your Friday with me. We are here every Friday around this time. So I think it's 10:30 Eastern, 3:30 GMT. I hope you all have an amazing weekend. And thank you again so very much.